Most people don't even know that they are projecting, and the pain that they are projecting is the truth that they refuse to confront. Hey guys, my name is Mike, and I'm a former New York City bouncer who went from working multiple jobs. I mean, I had 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job at one point. I was working over 100 hours a week. I wasn't sleeping between Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for 3 years. And 5 years of that I spent working as a bouncer in the biggest nightclub in New York City. Eventually, I went back to college in my late 20s, and I got several degrees, and I worked really, really hard, and I got a job at a top consulting firm, in one of the top firms in the world. So I'd like to share some of the some of the lessons that I've learned and some of my business ideas. Some of the things I'm working through currently is as the owner of my own strategy consulting firm, but also as somebody as a former six-figure employee. I like to share some of these ideas with you, some of the lessons I've learned, and stick around for the ride. So today I just want to talk about projection and how to recognize if you are doing it. So there are a lot of people who to they refuse to reflect on their own flaws. And so a lack of reflection, it creates projection. So what that means is that your own flaws, your own failures, and the emotions tied to them, rather than trying to sit down and understand why are you angry, why are you upset, you end up projecting that outwards onto other people. You end up being angry at other people. One very simple thing is your own frustration with your own life. You hate where you fucking live. You hate, like I did. I hated working multiple shitty jobs so I could have, $40,000-$50,000 a year of income, so I could be somewhat kind of in the middle class. I fucking hated it to work, two $20,000 a year jobs, work all this overtime. I was angry and frustrated with my own life. And it's very easy to project that onwards into other people. So you're driving to work in your shitty car. You fucking hate your shitty car. You hate your shitty job. And you're sitting there honking your horn, yelling at people, throwing up middle fingers, being frustrated and angry at the traffic, at people around you, rather than sitting down and understanding that that anger is coming from your own situation. So you see that with a lot of people in abusive relationships, where they're fighting with their spouse, they're being verbally or physically abusive with their spouse. It's not necessarily because they're a violent person, or they just like beating their spouse or yelling at them. It's because they're angry with their own shitty lives, their own shitty jobs. It even happens to people who are very wealthy and they have very difficult, stressful jobs. They might be a lawyer, they might be a doctor working 100 hours a week. They might be, they might have a business that just requires a lot of touch points, and it's very difficult and stressful to manage it. Even if it's $100 million a year business and they got a Lamborghini, they're still stressed out. And you see it all the time. People, multimillionaires kill themselves because they get stressed. So the same thing happens when people are abusive. They refuse to reflect on what is causing the issue. Why are they angry? And they just project their insecurities, their angers, their frustrations out onto other people. And it goes with sadness too. If you're a depressed sack of shit like I was for many years, it's because I was unable to, or I was too scared to really sit down and understand the root cause of my depression. Now, there was a couple of things there. There was some medical issues that I had to resolve, that I had to go through, and I was maybe too scared to actually go into it. Am I really mentally fucked up? And I'm too scared to actually go to a doctor and figure out a diagnosis and figure out what's wrong with me. And a lot of it, yes, there was some clinical depression, but I got that taken care of eventually. But the majority of my depression was around my circumstance. So I wasn't ever necessarily angry that I was poor, or angry that I was, not making the money I wanted to make or living the life I wanted. I was mostly depressed because I'm a self-reflecting, introspective person. And many of you probably are as well, which is why you're watching this video. And so rather than being angry and all that, you actually feel sad a lot. And a lot of it is because you know that you're meant for more. But rather than reflecting, rather than having that self-reflection, you're projecting that outwards in the form of sadness, depression, self-deprecating jokes. Oh, I'm not good enough, ha ha. Yeah, I would go out, but I don't make enough money, ha ha. Well, once again, reflect, don't project. Stop with the self-deprecating bullshit. It took me a long time to stop that. I had to stop with the self-deprecating humor because that was a form of me projecting my lack of self-worth. The other thing too is that sure, you can reflect and say, okay, I'm projecting because I'm depressed, because I'm unhappy with my circumstances. But weak men deflect responsibility. Weak men, weak women deflect responsibility. What that means is, don't just project your depression, your anger in other people, and with self-deprecating humor, with I'm gonna go to the gym and work out all my frustration and anger. Actually own up to why you're in this situation. And that is one of the hardest things to do. Because when you have to admit to yourself that you're poor, you're unhappy because of your circumstances, you're unhappy with your career, it's ultimately a reflection of your own choices. It's a reflection of your abilities or lack of abilities, your education or lack of education, your drive to have more, to want more, to do more. And if you're struggling, you have nobody else to blame but yourself. And oftentimes you see this lack of accepting responsibility, this deflection of responsibility. It really manifests itself in people, especially, and it's a very easy example, but it's very apparent in people who are overly crazy around politics. You see this with people who, will say things like, well, I can't get a better job because of the current president, or because of the Congress, or because of some laws, or the economy. And a lot of people just dive into politics to deflect from the responsibility around what they have. And I have somebody in my family who is exactly like this. They are absolutely bonkers around politics, and they blame everybody but themselves for their own circumstances. Their lack of ability to find a job, their lack of ability to give a shit. They used to have a business, and they refuse, rather than starting a business, rather than doing the hard work of going out and starting a business that they can. I have another friend of mine who started an $8 million a month business when they retired. In their 60s, they started a business that went from nothing to grew to $40 million a year plus business online, because they wanted to go do that. And the point is that if they can do it, then you can do it. Then my family member can do it too. They started a business years ago, decades ago. They know how to run a business. They know how to start, create, and run a business. But they are overly crazy around politics, around the presidency, around laws that are being passed. Some of the best thing is to not, of course you can care about politics, you can care about taxes and social welfare and all that stuff, but ultimately there are millionaires and billionaires who are made under any presidential administration, around any time in politics, there are people making money. And right now in the United States today, no matter who you are, there's zero reason for you not to be able to make it. There's immigrants who come here from highly persecuted countries, and they are able to do much better than most Americans. Barely speaking English, they can come here and do much better than 95% of Americans or more. So, point being is that if they can do it, you can do it. But don't deflect responsibility onto outward forces. So, number one is the lack of reflection creates projection. So first, be able to reflect on what's going on, why you're in these circumstances. Then accept responsibility. Do not deflect responsibility to external factors, to how poor you are, my environment, oh, I'm not educated enough, I live in a bad neighborhood, oh, the politics, the president is doing this, the president is doing that, the economy's bad, the stock market's down. Don't deflect responsibility. You are responsible for what you have right now. So how do you fix the projection issue? That happens through self-mastery. So self-mastery, it starts with the first thing that we said, which is recognizing and reflecting on why you're in these circumstances. Why are you projecting? Why are you angry? Why are you unhappy? Why do you shake your fist so much in traffic? And why are you sad and depressed? And why do you make self-deprecating humor? It's mastering yourself first, and then also understanding and recognizing that you are responsible for things around you, not your external environment. And so that requires, like I said, self-mastery. So start with the brutal self-honesty. What I actually do that helps me a lot. Look, it took me a long time, okay? Don't act like, you have to start doing this now. If you can do it now, great. The daily journaling, I sit here and I journal, as much as I can every day. I create these YouTube videos because it's also a form of journaling for me. And then take full ownership of your thoughts, your actions, and the results. In my case, right, it's very simple. There's certain things that I know I needed to take myself to the next step. I had to accept the responsibility. I had to accept and become I had to accept and take responsibility for the fact that I was an undisciplined fuck for a very long time. I had issues with discipline. I had issues with self-discipline. I hated the way I looked every fucking morning, right? I couldn't just project and point out to other people, oh, you're fat, oh, you're skinny, I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, man, I fucking hate the way I look. And I hate the fact that I'm undisciplined. I wish I was somebody who got up early and worked out, because those types of people are they're very highly correlated with very successful people, self-disciplined people. So I started doing the thing that is the most difficult thing that you can do, at least for me, I think, in terms of self-discipline, which is getting up before 4 o'clock, being in a gym at 4 a.m. every morning, and I do an hour of lifting, and I do a 10-mile run afterwards. It is fucking hard. It sucks. But I'm doing it to work not only on my self-discipline, but to build my body to where I'm proud of what I am. I'm proud of who I am, of what I look like. I had to work on these things. I had to stop projecting. I had to take responsibility for how I looked, for the life I have, for my lack of self-discipline and being the undisciplined fuck that I was. And I had to work on it. So the solution isn't blaming, it's building. Reflect on your flaws and level up. It's how you kill projection and step into power. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.